For 99.996% of human history, your ancestors were cold, they were hungry, they were exhausted. They carried heavy things over long distances. They sat with silence, with darkness, with discomfort, not as a lifestyle choice, but because that was simply what being alive required.
And then, in the last 100 years, we fixed it. Climate control, instant food, cars, elevators, same-day delivery. We removed the friction. We solved the discomfort. We gave ourselves everything our biology was screaming for 200,000 years.
And we are, by almost every measurable standard, worse off for it.
Sicker, more anxious, less resilient, less capable of sitting still, of tolerating difficulty, of finding meaning. We built the most comfortable world in human history, and then we couldn't figure out why we felt so hollow.
Michael Easter went to the Alaskan Arctic for 33 days to find out why, and what he found changed how he understood everything.
Welcome to Discourse, where we have a friendly chat about important stuff. I'm Andre.
And I'm Chloe. And I want to say from the top, this episode is one that I think is going to be uncomfortable to listen to, deliberately. Because that's, as you'll hear, entirely the point.
The Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter. This one is a gut check. Let's get into it.
Easter's central argument is what he calls the mismatch. Our bodies and brains were forged over hundreds of thousands of years in an environment of scarcity and challenge. Every system in us, the stress response, the hunger signal, the drive for warmth, the satisfaction of rest, was calibrated for a world that no longer exists.
And in the last century, without any evolutionary adjustment, we dropped those systems into a world of infinite abundance and zero physical challenge.
And the result is not contentment. It's metabolic disease, depression, anxiety, the inability to focus for more than 90 seconds, the feeling that something is missing, even when, by every objective measure, everything is fine.
But the mechanism that makes this worse, the thing Easter calls problem creep, that is what I find most disturbing. There's a Harvard psychologist, David Lavari, who ran studies where participants had to identify threatening faces in a sequence. As the actually threatening faces were reduced, participants didn't relax. They expanded their definition of threatening to fill the gap. Previously neutral expressions started registering as dangerous.
So the brain doesn't go, great, fewer threats, I can relax. The brain goes, fewer threats, better look harder. It recalibrates the threat threshold downward. And this is exactly what happens with comfort. As genuine hardships disappear, your brain starts classifying minor inconveniences as emergencies. Slow Wi-Fi, a slightly warm room, a minor wait. Your nervous system responds with the same chemistry it once reserved for predators.
And Easter has this statistic that I keep returning to. Only 2% of people choose stairs over an escalator when both are available. 2%. Not because the stairs are far, not because anyone is injured, because the easier option exists. And the default setting in every human brain is to take it. Every time, without thinking. And every time we do, we reinforce the neural pathway that says comfort is always the right choice. 2%. And the 98% ain't lazy. They're just doing exactly what a survival brain tells them to do, in an environment that survival brain was never designed for.
So Easter's prescription, his answer to all of this, is not a daily habit. It's not a supplement or a meditation app. It's one thing once a year. He calls it a misogi, borrowed from ancient Shinto purification rituals, and the modern version, designed by a sports scientist named Marcus Elliott, has 2 rules. 1, it must be so difficult that even if you execute it perfectly, there is only a 50% chance you succeed. 2, you cannot die.
Those are the only 2 rules. Extraordinarily difficult and survivable, which sets a very specific kind of challenge, not reckless, not safe, genuinely on the edge of your actual capability. And Easter's own misogi was 33 days in the Alaskan Arctic, unsupported, no resupply, sub-freezing temperatures, complete isolation, and he was hunting, actually hunting for food, not as a sport,
as the only way to eat. And he describes when he finally gets close to an old limping caribou bull, the weight of what he's about to do, the weight of taking a life, and then the weight, literally, of hauling 100 pounds of meat across miles of tundra back to camp.
And what Easter found in those 33 days is a concept he borrows from Japanese philosophy, sumikiri, pure clarity, the state that comes on the other side of genuine trial, not the clarity of a quiet Sunday morning, the clarity of, I did something genuinely hard, I survived it, and now the small things have returned to their actual size.
That's the mechanism, not the Arctic specifically, the hard things specifically. Because when you have genuine difficulty in your recent memory, your brain has a reference point for what a real problem feels like, and the Wi-Fi being slow doesn't make the list.
He calls it the central governor, the brain's tendency to pump the brakes, to tell you you've hit your limit long before you actually have. And the only way to expand that governor, to push the brake point further out, is to repeatedly go past where it fires, which comfort, by design, never lets you do.
Comfort keeps you exactly at the break point, and you wonder why you never feel like you're growing.
Now, Easter doesn't just argue for physical hardship, he argues for cognitive hardship too. Specifically, the hardship of silence and the hardship of boredom, which in a world where the average person is engaging with screens for over 11 hours a day, have been effectively eradicated.
And this is not a put your phone down lecture. This is neuroscience. There is a brain network, the default mode network, that only activates when you are doing nothing. No input, no task, just empty mental space. And this network, when it fires, is where creativity lives, where future planning happens, where you process emotions, make meaning, figure out who you actually are. And we have filled every gap in our days, every commute, every queue, every spare 30 seconds with a screen. And the default mode network never gets to fire.
He describes the Arctic as a black hole of silence. No traffic, no notifications, no hum of a refrigerator, no distant aircraft. And he sat in that silence for long enough that he could hear his own heart beating like a kick drum, just his own heartbeat, which most people have never heard in their lives because they have never been somewhere that quiet.
His own heart. I don't know if I've ever sat somewhere quiet enough to hear that. And that fact feels like it should bother me more than it does.
And research shows that just 2 minutes of silence, 2 minutes, is more physiologically relaxing than listening to music. The nervous system downregulates, blood pressure drops, cortisol falls. 2 minutes. And we are filling every 2 minutes with noise.
Easter gives us the 25-3 rule, a nature prescription from a psychologist named Rachel Hopman. 20 minutes in green space, a park, a garden, anywhere with trees, 3 times a week. 5 hours in semi-wild nature, a forest, a trail, somewhere that requires leaving the city once a month. And 3 days completely off-grid, no phone, no internet, no screens, once a year. That's the baseline, the minimum maintenance for a human nervous system that is supposed to function.
And by day 3 in the wild, brainwaves shift from frenetic beta, the constant busy processing of modern life, to relaxed alpha and theta, the brainwaves of experienced meditators, not because you meditated, because you stopped feeding the noise.
You know, Easter talks about how filling every gap with stimulation shuts down the default mode network, the part of the brain that makes meaning, that plans, that figures out who you actually are. We're not trying to be your noise. We're trying to be the thing that activates the thinking. If this episode is doing that, subscribe, turn on the bell, and then after you do, put the phone down for 2 minutes. Seriously, back to Easter.
The only podcast that tells you to stop listening to it immediately after subscribing.
We contain multitudes. Okay, this next part, the hunger thing.
Easter makes this point about hunger that I found genuinely startling. Real hunger, the biological signal that your body needs fuel, drives only about 20% of modern eating behavior. The other 80% is boredom or stress or habit or the dopamine reward of eating something pleasurable just because it's there.
And the thing about real hunger is that it's useful. A nutrition expert in the book, Trevor Kashey, talks about autophagy. When the body genuinely runs low on fuel, it doesn't just sit there and suffer. It starts recycling. Damaged proteins, malfunctioning cells, it cleans house. Your body, when it's actually hungry, is doing maintenance. Maintenance that it never gets to do because we never let it be hungry.
And then there's rucking, walking with a weighted backpack. Easter argues this is the missing movement of modern life, because for almost the entire span of human existence, people carried things, tools, children, food, firewood, constantly, over vast distances. And then we invented wheels and elevators and cars, and the carrying stopped.
And rucking, just walking with weight on your back, burns 2 to 3 times more calories than regular walking, with less joint impact than running. You don't need a gym, you don't need equipment beyond a bag and something heavy to put in it. And it counteracts something Easter calls the postural damage of chronic sitting, because carrying weight forces your spine into the alignment it was designed for. We built chairs, and then we warped ourselves around them. And rucking undoes that.
We built chairs and then warped ourselves around them. That's one of the most visually accurate descriptions of modern posture I have ever heard.
Look around any office. We are all just slowly becoming the shape of our chairs.
And the final piece, the one I think is the most intellectually and spiritually demanding, is what Easter finds in Bhutan. Bhutan is consistently ranked among the happiest nations on earth, and one of the cornerstones of Bhutanese philosophy is the daily contemplation of death.
Death as a daily practice.
A Bhutanese scholar, Khenpo Phuncho Tashi, teaches that thinking about death 3 times daily dissolves what he calls the 3 delusions, greed, anger, and ignorance, and replaces them with radical gratitude, compassion, the ability to see clearly. Because when you genuinely hold the reality that you will die, and that it could be soon, everything that is not essential falls away.
He uses this metaphor, a trail ending in a cliff. If you don't know the cliff is there, you walk with your head down, focused on the steps, counting the distance, checking your time, missing the view. But if you know the cliff is coming, you look up. You notice the trees, the light, the person walking next to you. Because this trail is finite and you can feel it, so you pay attention.
And Easter, in the most affecting passage in the book, performs 20 minutes of CPR on a monk who collapses at the tiger's nest. The man does not survive, and Easter describes sitting in the aftermath, surrounded by this ancient, beautiful, impossibly still place, and realizing that the checklist life, the constant achieving, accumulating, optimizing, is itself a form of avoidance. He calls it Western laziness, the laziness of never doing the hard work of asking, what is this actually for?
Western laziness. Not the laziness of doing nothing, the laziness of staying too busy so you never have to sit with that question.
Staying too busy to ask what it's for. I recognize that.
Let's land. Easter is not telling you to move to Alaska. He's not saying sell your house and live in the woods. He is not anti-comfort. He is saying comfort should be the reward, not the baseline. And when it becomes the baseline, when every inconvenience is an emergency, when every empty moment gets filled, when every hard thing gets avoided, you don't become safe. You become fragile. And you lose the ability to feel genuinely grateful for what you have, because nothing is hard enough to make you notice it.
The book's final argument is beautifully simple. Flourishing, real flourishing, exists at the edge of the comfort zone, not in the abandon of all comfort, but in the regular, intentional, chosen encounter with difficulty. Because that encounter is what keeps the systems calibrated, what keeps the problems at their correct size, what makes rest actually feel like rest, what makes life feel like a life?
Our question for the comments today, and I want a real answer. When was the last time you did something genuinely hard? Not hard like a stressful week at work, hard like you didn't know if you could finish it. You were uncomfortable the whole way through, and you did it anyway. When was that, and how did it feel after?
And if today made you look at your life, at your routines, your choices, your relationship with difficulty, share this episode, because someone in your world is comfortable, deeply, completely, thoroughly comfortable, and wondering why they feel, somehow, less. This book has an answer for that.
The Comfort Crisis, Michael Easter. Read it, and then take the stairs.
Take the Stairs. That's the whole book.
I'm Andre.
I'm Chloe.
And this is Discourse.
Stay curious. Choose the hard thing sometimes, and we'll see you next time.